Our presenter is Sabrina Darnell. She is the Intellectual Property and Compliance Coordinator for the Office of Technology Commercialization's Intellectual Property Development Team. Sabrina, take it over.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me just fine. So I just first want to go over my presentation slides are very busy because this is a lot of data for both presenting a disclosure and compliance. So feel free to email me after the presentation if you would like a copy of the presentation to read further in detail, because I'm not going to be going word for word of the presentation. Okay, so the Invention Report provides the OTC office with information and it needs to allow the patentability of your innovation. So it's very important that you provide the information to the Office of Technology Transfer that will help get the right information for your patent and for licensing. So, so once you feel that you have made, your invention to its full status for, it should be ready for patent filing, and you're ready to move forward, that's when it is time to fill out the invention form and get it to the OTC team. So that's what we're going to talk about here in the first set of slides, is how to submit your disclosure to the Office of Technology Transfer. So as I said, we strongly encourage inventors to submit the Invention Report before any public disclosures are done, to make sure that we have you covered with a patent, with a provisional, before you provide the information out to the world, because then you will lose your rights to your patent if you have done so before a provisional has been filed. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact our office regarding when you should do a public disclosure and how you need to proceed to do so. So let's talk about setting yourself up for success and the appropriate documentation. That is the very important key of filing a disclosure. So first thing you need to do is to identify what aspects of your invention are potentially valuable and patentable for appropriate description of your invention. Then understanding what stage of the invention process you are in, so filing will be processed accordingly. This will allow the OTC team to, once they meet with you, you'll meet with their fellows group after they do a marketing assessment of your disclosure, and understanding exactly where you're at and where you're wanting to go will be very important. So, I really recommend that you know this before you file, so that you're, be able to answer all the questions, and we're able to support you with what you're wanting to get out of your invention. Really important to identify your sponsors. That's going to be our whole part of this presentation of being in compliance. There is so many key elements in making sure when you file your disclosure that you provide this information correctly and accurately and in detail, so that we can make sure that your federal regulations are in compliance and you can continue getting your funding. So, step one is to download an Invention Report from Office of Technology Transfer's website, and make sure that you download the form to your desktop, because if you don't, it messes up the form if it's not downloaded, and then you can't see the contents once you send it to us. Then step 2 is to make sure you complete every item, at least addressed it. In the compliance section, if federal grants are not an issue with your invention, just mark it no and it'll move forward. But if yes, it'll move it on over to the compliance portion, and a lot more questions are needing to be completed in full, and it will explain that as you go through the Invention Report. And then once you have completed it, you need to email the completed form to the Invention Report email, which is also on our websites. So just so you know, you can also see your invention activity reports, patent and patent applications that have been completed for each invention that you have filed. This is based on linked blue IDs, and you're the only ones that will be able to see the information with your name on it. All you have to do is go to this website and click into Wellsprings and click on login using your linked blue ID. Put your linked blue ID and password in, and it should bring up details of the activity of your inventions. A lot of people don't know this is available. If you're an older innovator, you might not be marked to be able to see this detail. So if you're not able to get in, please feel free to email myself, Sabrina Darnell, and I will make sure you have access to get to that. This is a very good way for you just to keep up with what the Office of Technology Transfer has done with your inventions. And then there's just a little bit of housekeeping instructions on here about the browsers. I'm sorry, I'm also going to go back to the form. I wanted to note that I have noticed some issues that some of the places have not been using the newest version of PDF. If you do not have the newest version, you'll need to get with your IP team and ask them to upgrade your PDF so that you're using the most current version of that program. But when you're filling out your invention disclosure form, I wanted to kind of go over what some of the areas consist of. One is you'll have an identifying number, which will always be used. Once we have received that, we will give you an identifier. You'll get an email back from our Invention Report upload and telling you what that number is. And so whenever you're talking to anyone, if you give them that number, they're going to be able to access that a lot quicker and find the invention report that you're actually wanting to talk to them about. It's going to have an invention report date. That is very important for compliance purposes. The title is important, very important also for compliance. The inventors, it is very important that you fill out all areas for each inventor that it is asking, as so that we can set them up, because also we need to know their colleges and their departments, because we do a lot of reporting also for colleges and departments, and if this is not answering it, it's not going to capture it for everyone who is involved in the disclosure. So it's very important that these are completed. Grant numbers need to be included, and a very sufficient description. We'll talk about descriptions further in the compliance side and the best way to come up with descriptions. So like right here, does it, to double check your disclosure, does your invention have a sufficient description? Is the main element of the invention present? Are the referenced attachments included? So some people like say see attachment. So you need to make sure when you're doing the email to our invention report that the attachments for each of those are attached. Does your invention have a past or upcoming public disclosure? If so, please make sure it's marked so that our office will know if we have any dates that we need to make sure that we get activities completed by. So that means there again, it's just making sure you have indicated the publication status on the top of the manuscript publication, not published, or when and where it was published, if it has been published, and make a note if the authors and inventors don't match. That's going to be important in your compliance because they're going to, we need to make sure they're listed. And of course, add the date of the publication if applicable. This here, I'm going to talk into it in more detail at the very end of the presentation. I'm sorry, I mean, I kind of added that here recently, just today, because I found a better way of presenting it. But so I just wanted to make sure that, you know, I left this here because it is a very important part of compliance, that we make sure that we meet our timelines and that we have, you know, the disclosure and to like title in a certain time frame. So it's, I mean, it's good for us to keep bringing it up as much as possible anyway. So, all right. Under the new Bayh-Dole Act, let's talk about compliance here. It is more important than ever to like title in a timely manner. So, timeline to staying in compliance. And this is the steps that I follow. So the invention disclosure to the NIH is written within 2 months of the inventor's initial report to the organization. So I have 2 months to make sure all your information is correct in your invention report. So I usually wait until after you've had a meeting with our fellows to actually report to NIH. So that way we'll make sure that these titles and everything are correct, because it's going to follow it throughout. And then, so we submit it, you know, and it pretty much just sits there until we take election of the title, which we have 2 years of the disclosure to NIH. Sometimes this election is made at the time of the disclosure of the invention. So like if we now have to report provisionals, which we did not used to have to before the new Bayh-Dole Act, but now we do. So if we do a provisional, we go on and elect title at that time. If not, you know, we wait until we file the patent. We don't wait for the 2 years to do it. We go on and do it once we have elected title. So then we don't have to worry about it. So non-election of the title to the innovation for the inventions not disclosed to the public notification of the NIH in the last 60 days prior to the end of the 2-year period of disclosure. So that's if we decided we're not going to move forward, we need to let them know that we're not. And then they have the right to elect title themselves, which, I mean, that we'll discuss that later too. Then the patent application within 1 year of election of title or publication, which is earlier, provision to the NIH and confirmatory license, and the page of the patent application that contains the federal support clause, which that is all handled by our office. If we need you to have you sign something to complete that, we will send it to you for signature. And then the next part is issue patent. Provision to the NIH of the patent number and issue date at the time the issues of the patent. So all this information gets sent as it's happening to NIH or whatever the funding agency is, if it's a reporting agency. We also provide the annual utilization reports every year. That's as if the invention is licensed, and then we have to let the NIH and the agencies know how much money we have made on the disclosures. So after the patent has died or is no longer inactive and we're not continuing anymore, not paying the maintenance fees or whatever, we have to do a final invention statement prior to close out of the NIH grant contract. A lot of you all go through OSPA for this, and then OSPA contacts us to make sure the NIH is in line and has been reported before we do the closeout. So and I just wanted to put this out here too. There is consequences if we do not follow the BIDOL reporting for iEdison. Is used if we don't do the failure to report invention, appropriately, is usually caused by misunderstanding of the legislation as implemented regulations. So that means people just don't know that timeline that I had showed you and are not reporting in that timeline. If we're doing everything in that timeline, you don't have nothing to worry about with the failure to be reporting. And they won't come in and take over. They can come in and take our inventions if they're not reported. So that's why it's really important that you mark your government contracts on your invention reports. So, I mean, all of this links in together. I think that's all I have. I'd like to open up the floor and really ask your all's questions, see if y'all have questions to see if I can help you understand the compliance and invention reporting to the Office of Technology Transfer.
Thanks, Sabrina. We do have some questions on chat, and if you have questions, please put those in chat and we'll ask, and Sabrina can answer those for you. The first question we have is, can a collaborative work between UK faculties and other universities be patented? And if yes, what is the procedure and how is it different?
I mean, are you asking if it can be just patented in itself, or does it have federal funding? I mean, either way, it could be yes. And at that time, our office would put in place a interinstitutional agreement. So if you're working with another party, when you disclose, even if they are taking the lead, it still needs to be disclosed at our university. So that we'll know that an IIA needs to go in place with this. But yes, one of the organizations will take lead and they will pay for the patenting expense, or will split the expenses. It's whatever is agreed upon in the IIA.
Thanks, Sabrina. Within the Inventor portal homepage, what is the significance of the star next to one of the inventor's name?
The star is that we have determined they were the lead inventor. So they would be the main contact.
What happens if the organization decides not to elect title on the invention?
So the awardee has 2 years after the disclosure of an invention to the NIH to determine if they want to elect title or not. If the organization does not choose to elect title, it must have the NIH under these circumstances. The NIH has the option to take title. The government evaluates the invention and determines whether the patents or further development of the public interest. So in other words, they would take title and actually, like they'll have the commercial interest in that patent instead of the university, because they paid for the funding of the invention. I hope I answered that question correctly.
Do other funding agencies such as NSF have a similar requirement like NIH?
Yes, all federal agencies have reporting. So there's, I think there's like, I have reported probably 15 different agencies, but there's a lot more than that. And they're all done through iEdison.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Write the title of a patent.
Excuse me?
How do you write the title for a patent?
All right. And I have that because that's kind of important. It should be a descriptive of the invention itself, which claims and direct the reader of what the invention actually is. And it should not exceed, which I think is kind of long, 500 characters.
And what if the NIH also decides not to elect title? Can the inventor get title?
Yes, at that time it is returned to the inventor. If the university decides they don't want it, it goes to the reporting agency. They have the right to not elect title, and then at that time it is fully 100% released to the inventor.
Is there any harm in an inventor publicly disclosing an invention before reporting it to the Office of Technology Commercialization?
Yes, it should be reported to us first before going public or anything, so that we can make sure that we have it protected, or you could lose patenting rights.
Okay. If both UK and NIH elect not to take title, the inventor can take the title. This happens very infrequently. That's from another member of the OTC team.
Okay, repeat the question.
It wasn't a question, it was a comment about the previous question, that if
what did it say?
Not to take the title, then the inventor can take the title, but it happens very infrequently.
Right.
Another question is, what if an inventor is unsure that he or she has made a subject invention? What if the inventor and/or organization official have a question of a general nature? Whom can they contact for additional information?
Additional information on
if they're unsure if they have a subject invention, or if they have a question of a general nature about technology and patenting.
I would contact our director of intellectual property, Matt Upton, and he can help you with that.
And then we have one more question, unless someone wants to add questions in the chat button. How do you write an invention summary?
An invention summary identifies the advantage of the inventions and how the invention solves the problem described in the background section. Preparing a summary of the invention sections, one should avoid providing some sort of overbroad summary that goes beyond the claims of the manual.
Thank you, Sabrina. Does anyone else have any additional questions before we end? Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions. As I said earlier, for those who might have missed it, we have recorded this session and we will be putting it up on the Office of Technology Commercialization's YouTube page. And I will send out a link to that as soon as it's up to everyone who's registered. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us today, and you can always contact the Office of Technology Commercialization if you have any questions about patenting, licensing, commercializations, or startups. And you can, if you want to contact Matt or anyone in UK OTC, you can find the contact information here on this top slide. And we appreciate you all being here. Thank you.